Before we begin our worship service, I just want to give you a few updates on people we've been talking about the last few days. Joan Robinson's pacemaker and defibrillator, that surgery went very well, and she was coming home this afternoon. And then I just got a text from Linda Scribner, and the surgery was very long. But David got out of the surgery at 4. They removed the esophagus. They had to do 3 incisions. He'll be in ICU for 24 hours, but things are going well. It's just a very big surgery. And Leigh or Mike, is there anything about Frank's PET scan?
They won't know results for probably
Till they get home.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Where is David's group? Where is he?
It's at KU Med, I think. KU Med. Yes. All right. We welcome all to this Good Friday Tenebrae service, and so thankful that Leigh could play for us this evening, and that Randy, as always, is here doing our tech. God is light, in whom there is no darkness at all. Jesus Christ is the light of the world. And this is the judgment, that the light had come into the world, and we loved darkness rather than light. Let us join together in singing When I Survey the Wondrous Cross. If you like to read music, all of these will be out of the red hymnal. It's 298, otherwise the words are on the screen. Christ, our first lesson, Mark chapter 14, verses 32 through 38. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples,
"Sit here while I pray."
He took with him Peter and James and John and began to be distressed and agitated, and he said to them,
"I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and keep awake."
And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And he said,
"Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I want, but what you want."
He came and found them sleeping, and he he said to Peter,
Simon, are you asleep? Could you not keep awake 1 hour? Keep awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak.
The second lesson. And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And once more he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to say to him. He came a third time and said to them,
Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? Enough, the hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand.
The third lesson. Immediately, while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him there was a crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying,
The one who killed this is the man. Arrest him and lead him away under guard.
So when he came, he went up to him at once and said,
Rabbi,
and kissed him. Then they laid hands on him and arrested him, but one of those who stood near drew his sword and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to them,
have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me, as though I were a man? Day after day I was with you in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But let the scriptures be fulfilled.
All of them deserted him and fled. The fourth lesson. A certain young man was following him, wearing nothing but a linen cloth. They caught hold of him, but he left the linen cloth and ran off naked. The fifth lesson. They took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, the elders, and the scribes were assembled. Peter followed him at a distance right into the courtyard of the high priest, and he was sitting with the guards, warming himself at the fire. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they found none. For many gave false testimony against him, and their testimony did not agree. Some stood up and gave false testimony against him, saying,
We heard him say, I will destroy this temple that is made with hands, and in 3 days I will build another, not made with hands.
But even on this point their testimony did not agree. Then the high priest stood up before them and asked Jesus,
Have you no answer? What is that they testify against you?
But he was silent and did not answer. And again the high priest asked him,
Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?
Jesus said,
I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power, and coming with the clouds of heaven.
Then the high priest tore his clothes and said,
Why do we still need witnesses? You have heard his blasphemy. What is your decision?
All of them condemned him as deserving death. Some began to spit on him, to blindfold him, and to strike him, saying to him,
Prophesy.
The guards also took him over, and they beat him. The sixth lesson. While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came by, and when she saw Peter warming himself, she stared at him and said, "You are with Jesus, the man from Nazareth." But he denied it, saying,
"I do not know or understand what you are talking about."
And he went out into the forecourt. Then the cock crowed, and the servant girl, on seeing him, began again to say to the bystander, "This man is one of them." But again he denied it. Then after a little while, the bystanders again said to Peter,
"Certainly you are one of them, for you are a Galilean."
But he began to curse, and he swore an oath,
"I do not know this man you were talking about."
At that moment, the cock crowed for the second time. Then Peter remembered that Jesus had said to him,
"Before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times."
And he broke down and wept. The seventh lesson. As soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered him, "You say so." Then the chief priests accused him of many things, and Pilate asked him again, "Have you no answer? See how many charges they bring against you." But Jesus made no further reply, so that Pilate was amazed. The eighth lesson. Now at the festival, he used to release a prisoner for them, anyone for whom they asked. Now a man called Barabbas was in prison with the rebels who had committed murder during the insurrection. So the crowd came and began to ask Pilate to do for them according to his custom. Then he answered them, for he realized that it was out of jealousy that the chief priests had handed him over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have them release Barabbas for them instead. Pilate spoke to them again. "Then what do you wish me to do with the man you call the King of Jews?" They shouted back,
"Crucify him."
Pilate asked them, but they shouted all the more,
"Crucify him."
So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas for them, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified. The ninth lesson. Then the soldiers led him into the courtyard of the palace, that is, the governor's headquarters, and they called together the whole cohort, and they clothed him in a purple cloak, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on him, and they began saluting him.
"Hail, King of the Jews!"
They struck his head with a reed, spat upon him, and knelt down in homage to him. And after mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put on his own clothes on him. And then they led him out to crucify him. Tenth lesson. They compelled a passerby who was coming in from the country to carry his cross. It was Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus. Then they brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of a skull, and they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him and divided his clothes among them, casting lots to decide what each should take. Please stay seated as we sing together Beneath the Cross of Jesus. The 11th lesson. It was 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified him. The inscription of the charge against him read,
"The King of the Jews."
And with him they crucified two bandits, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying,
"Aha! You who destroyed the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself and come down from the cross."
In the same way, the chief priests along with the scribes were also mocking him among themselves and saying,
He saves others. He cannot save himself. Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down from the cross now, so that we may see and believe.
Those who were crucified with him also taunted him. The 12th lesson. And when it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice,
My God, why have you forsaken me?"
When some of the bystanders heard it, they said,
Listen, he is calling for Elijah.
and someone ran, filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink, saying,
Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down.
The 13th lesson. Then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Now when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said,
Truly, this man was God's Son.
The 14th lesson. There was also women looking on from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James the younger, and of Joseph and Salome. These used to follow him and provided for him when he was in Galilee. And there were many other women who had come with him to Jerusalem. The 15th lesson. When evening had come, and since it was the day of preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the council, who was also himself waiting expectantly for the kingdom of God, went boldly to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate wondered if he were already dead, and summoning the centurion, he asked him whether he had been dead for some time. When he learned from the centurion that he was dead, he granted the body to Joseph. Then Joseph bought a linen cloth, and taking down the body, wrapped him in the linen cloth, and laid it in a tomb that had been hewn out of a rock, and then rolled a stone against the door of the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, saw where the body was laid. Go in peace. May Jesus Christ, who for our sake became obedient unto death, even death on a cross, keep you and strengthen you through this time and forever.